would you define enlightenment in terms of liberation through non-clinging?
Yeah, I think there are many ways of describing enlightenment, and this is where a lot of the traditions start fighting with one another because they have different descriptions of it. So the couple of the descriptions that I find most helpful, one is that, because it really points to the essence of the liberated mind, the mind that is not clinging to anything. So in one of the Pali texts, it says, nothing whatsoever is to be clung to as I or mine. Whoever understands this has understood all the teachings. Whoever practices this has practiced all the teachings. Whoever realizes this has realized all the teachings. So that really, in one way, gets to the essence of it. Nothing whatsoever is to be clung to as I or mine. So that could be one description of the awakened mind. Another one that I really appreciate a lot, also found in the text where the Buddha is describing Nibbana, which is the Pali or Nirvana, in Sanskrit, as the uprooting, or the mind that has uprooted greed, hatred, and ignorance. And I like that too, because it feels to me very pragmatic. We can really check ourselves. Okay, has greed been uprooted, or are we on the way to uprooting it? Is it being weakened? The same with anger or hatred or delusion. So rather than describing the state in more mystical terms, which one could also do, there are descriptions like that, but I like the pragmatism of, okay, what's the actual effect in the mind? And so those are a couple of descriptions that I appreciate a lot.
Right. And when it comes to the actual, the need to practice meditation in order to kind of, I guess, change one's habits of clinging, I really appreciated, I was listening to a Dharma talk of yours today on the podcast, and you were talking about, I think you called it catalog consciousness, this mode of flicking through the pages and wanting to want something, which is a very kind of subtle level of clinging, right?
Absolutely. Subtle but pervasive.
Right. And I guess meditation is necessary to catch those kind of nuanced levels of clinging.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and also it's to realize that the Dharma is vast, and so just to give an indication of that, within the Theravada tradition, they talk of 4 stages of awakening. And they call the first one stream entry, or entering the stream towards full enlightenment. And at that point, the view of self has been uprooted. That's what's characteristic of that first stage of awakening. But interestingly enough, there are a lot of unwholesome patterns still remaining in the mind. There's still greed, there's still desire, there's still aversion, there's still restlessness, there's still conceit, the sense of I am. So even though, and this is transformative, we realize all those patterns are selfless, so we've cut through the belief that they belong to anyone, the patterns are still operative because they're very deeply conditioned. And so that's why it's not enough to have a moment's realization. It takes a lot of work. So there's a 11th century Korean Zen master, his name was Shinul, and he has teachings that I also really appreciate a lot. He frames all of his teachings in the phrase, sudden awakening, gradual cultivation, acknowledging that can be sudden moments of realization, that really change everything, but then that requires gradual cultivation to further, to bring it to completion, and so I like that model.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that model as well. I think I have a book on him called Tracing Back the Radiance, I think it's called.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And I feel like, so I had a similar kind of, I guess, spontaneous awakening experience as a teenager to the one you described. And so I feel like for both of us, there's this, like I heard you say as well in one of your talks, that you've been trying to kind of you've basically been trying to integrate that one experience for the rest of your life, or like play catch up to the insight
Exactly.
that came along that day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.